Hello, everybody. Today we will be talking about the life of Olaudah Equiano. Mr. Equiano was born a free man on 1745. He was born into a very successful and loving family that lived in what is now known as Nigeria, Africa. He was said to become a leader of his people. However, one unfortunate day when he was 11 years old, a group of enslavement traders broke into his village and kidnapped him and his sister. He was unaware at the time, but he was about to endure the most painful years of his life being sold into the transatlantic slave trade. He was taken to several houses on the way to the coast, where he was given false hopes several moments when the enslavement owners he was taken to were kind to him. I say it was false hope because the minute he began feeling comfortable, he was taken until he reached his destination, which was an enslavement ship that was headed towards the Caribbean. Now, you must be wondering why Mr. Equiano was not taken directly to the ship. That is because captains were very greedy and they would not set sail until they could cram as many human beings into the ship as possible. Captains would gather enslaved people by giving African buyer bundles of goods that were on their ship in exchange for enslaved people that Africans would forcefully capture, like Mr. Equiano and his sister. So it basically became its own bartering system. We will now discuss how life was like on board enslavement ships, because this is one of the many big motivators for Mr. Equiano to write his autobiography in the future. From the readings, we go into heavy detail of the atrocities that occurred on the ships that were used to carry captive people. For starters, captains and crew members viewed these captive human beings as commodities and any other good they were tasked to carry. This means that the comfort level and meals of the captive people were not things that were prioritized. In fact, the enslaved people were put below the deck that had ceilings as low as 4 feet tall, and they were supposed to use the bathroom where they were sitting, causing several diseases to spread. The stench was also so bad that it caused people to suffocate and die from it. The enslaved women experienced a lot of sexual assault at the hands of the captains and the crew. In Muscatine's article, we learn about a case that enlightened people on what occurred on these enslavement ships. An unnamed captive woman with smallpox was thrown overboard to prevent the other captive people from getting it. Captains did this because insurance companies would cover captive people that died from drowning, but not ones that would die by disease. Revolts would occur like ones led by women that were mostly unsuccessful, and resistance movements like suicide and refusal to eat. But people were whipped to death when this would occur. Although not much came of these revolts and resistance movements, they did give enslaved people a glimmer of hope. Not every ship was ran the same, but all of them had some variation of these treatments, and Mr. Equiano's experience was no exception. Although this information is very hard to hear, it is important to share it so we never get to this point again. To end on a more positive note, let's discuss Mr. Equiano's life after enslavement. After arriving in the Caribbean, Mr. Equiano was sold to several enslavement owners. One owner, who was a sea captain, allowed him to learn to read and write, and then another allowed Mr. Equiano to earn a little money of his own. This allowed him to buy his own emancipation in 1766, and he got to work immediately on his autobiography while living in England. His book was published in 1787, and because of it, people were able to see how awful enslaved people were treated. His words were so powerful that he was asked to travel all over England and teach about how bad enslavement is and encouraging the government to abolish enslavement. Mr. Equiano sadly passed away in 1797 before enslavement was officially abolished in England on 1834. However, it was thanks to his work that became such a turning point in being able to abolish enslavement. His impact will never be forgotten. Thank you guys so much for listening.